right, here we go, Mazz. It's like the Yeti. Rarely seen. Bruins president Cam Neely for the first time out of the bunker, and he's got notes. He's got notes there on the table.
Well, that's good because so do I. And I know you do, too.
I don't. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. As usual, Bruins president Cam Neely joins us for the first time this year. Felger Mazz from our Star Market broadcast studios at the Garden. Cam, how you doing?
I'm okay. How are you guys?
Okay. Tough times for the team. You come back right into the belly of the beast, so why don't we just get right to it?
Sure.
You've gotten a lot of criticism, I think a lot of it justified, for holding that press conference the other day during the Patriots' victory parade.
Yeah, so let me just explain that. First of all, I read an article from Shaughnessy that called us cowards, which easy to say from a keyboard, but quite frankly, we looked at the schedule of and we, Don was like, if we do this now, it'll give Bruce 2 days of practice with the team to put in and make some changes that he'd like to make to give us the best chance to win tonight. So the decision, and then we hear about a parade. So do you say to yourself, well, we'll do it the next day, and then not allow Bruce an opportunity to have 2 full days of practice with the team before we play?
Why not Sunday? I mean, if the Maple Leafs game was the last straw, why not Saturday night, Sunday morning?
Well, I think Don, from conversation with Don, he took the day Sunday to really look at, is this the time that he wants to make it? There was a decision that Don made maybe a little earlier, not much earlier, about do I extend Claude or not. He was having that discussion internally.
You guys were talking about extending him?
No, Don was asking himself, am I going to extend Claude? He's going into his last year of his contract. At some point, we got to either we're not extending him or we are extending him.
Fisher cut bait is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. So then, when it came to a time when Don was like, "Okay, I don't think I'm going to extend him," then it became, when do we ride out the year to see how we go? Because listen, granted, he's a good coach. We've never ever said he's not a good coach. He's done a lot of great things here in Boston for this organization. So we've never doubted or said he's not a good coach. But it got to a point where Don felt that change was needed.
Okay, so, but I can't believe after, you've worked with him, Cam, for 8 years, Claude. Sweeney's worked in this organization for how long and has been here for 2 You needed 2 extra days after the Toronto game to make up that decision?
Well,
I find that impossible to believe.
No, so it was a scheduled day off Monday for the players. So they get 4 a month per CBA. Monday was a scheduled day off.
You can't fire a coach on a Monday?
Well, the time that Don was going to address the players, and so as soon as Don would talk to Claude and then announce a press release, Don wanted to get in front of the players before, the social media blew up. So players weren't available on Monday. There was a scheduled day off. He was meeting with the players Tuesday morning.
So you understand how this looks, though. You were here with Harry Sinden. Harry always fired his coaches Friday at 6 after the news was over. And, I think they fired Dave Lewis when Barry Bonds came to town. I mean, the organization has a long history of burying this thing. And you know how that looks to your fans.
Yeah, but believe me, you have to understand, we knew we were going to get pounded by doing it on the day of the parade. So we knew that going in. I don't understand how we're trying to hide anything. It's impossible to hide anything with social media. How are you going to hide anything? I mean, it's not like waiting for the 6 o'clock news to hear what's going on with the sports or reading it the next day in the paper. This had nothing to do about hiding. This had everything to do about what was the best time to do it for the club and give Bruce an opportunity to get the practices for the team.
So why'd you do it?
Well, I think we're looking at we still feel we still feel, based on the other teams in our conference, that we still have a chance, obviously, to make the playoffs. So we're not giving up on that. We want to see what kind of voice Bruce will bring to the team, and if that's going to make a difference. And quite frankly, our home record has been awful for the last year and a half. So that's been unacceptable. I mean, and we've lost 4 games with a minute and a half or less in the game where we got 0 points out of it. So, looking at, are we going to expect more of the same for the rest of the season, or do we decide to see what else can come of a coaching change? And believe me, this is not all on Claude. We understand the holes that we have and the improvements that we need to make. And trying to retool on the fly is not an easy thing to do, but we weren't in a position to blow up this team. The core of this team, we weren't in a position to do that.
Does any part of you feel like you waited too long, or was any consideration given earlier to making a move?
Yeah, Don had talked about it earlier, but we put a couple wins together. We looked like we were turning the corner. We were starting to score again. Our power play came around. Defensively, I think you can say that we're better than what everybody expected us to be defensively. Early on we weren't scoring. Our power play was awful. So those things were turning around. Our power play picked up, and we started to get put the puck in the net. And then, so there was conversation, but this was the time that Don felt was the right time.
Do you think is there anything more specific you can give us with Claude? How do you feel he dealt with young players? How do you feel he dealt with the offensive part of the game? How did you feel? Did he still have the room? Those things.
I think he still had the room. We have a very professional group of players, and Claude. There was never any gray area with Claude. We'd like to see about implementing some younger players into our lineup. We talked about that last summer. We talked about it throughout the course of the year.
Was he reluctant to do that?
Right. Was that going the way you wanted it to go?
Well, I think there's times when he maybe feels that some of the players aren't ready, where, we know we're going to get mistakes from young players, and you're going to have to live with them. Those were probably an area where Don and him disagreed with a little bit at times. But I can understand, like, Claude's had success in this league and he has, he likes to roll four lines, and he likes to trust the four lines and the 6D. And, quite frankly, we know that there's holes in our lineup that we need to improve upon.
You said you'd think in your release, and that's another question I want to ask you, why you weren't there. Well, let me answer that now. Let me ask it now. Why weren't you there the other day?
Well, Don's the GM. He made a decision, and I supported his decision.
Don't you have final say on this stuff, though?
Yeah, I do. I supported his decision to let Claude go.
But you don't think you should be there to answer for that?
Well, I don't know how many presidents are answering that with their GM if the GM makes a move. I mean, what I don't understand is why can't people separate the fact that I'm not the general manager, I'm the president. So yes, Don has to come to me and say, here's what I'm thinking of doing, and I have to either say, no, I disagree, or yes, I agree.
Because you have final say. You have the veto power. So it is ultimately on you. That's why people want to hear from you.
Yeah, which is fine. So I'm talking now. But I'm not. It's not on me to go and address the media when the GM is fired the coach.
Okay, so you said in your release that you think this team should be better than what it is. You should be getting more out of it than what you are. What should they be? What should be? Right now they're on pace for 86 points.
Well, I feel
what
like...
should they be on pace for?
Excuse me. I feel like we've had at least 6 or 8 points left on the table. So, I feel like we've left some points on the table. So whether that's enough to get into the playoffs, that remains to be seen. If we were to take those games where I feel like we should have come away with more points or a point, and if would people feel better around here if our road record was our home record? Probably, but our home record is an issue for me, and it has been.
So this is obviously, that's the second time you've mentioned that now, right? So do you have a theory there? Why can't you win in this building?
Well, I think on the road, we just go play, and you put out your lines and see what they're going to do for a matchup. So I think at home there's maybe a little bit more matchup and strategy concerns that may handcuff you a little bit, so to speak. If it happened, half a season, you'd say, okay, it's just we've just had a bad run at home. But we're talking a season and a half, so you have to ask, why is that?
Bruins president Cam Neely joining us for the first time this year. Let me give you the questions that I get from the fans the most, 1 and 2. Number 1 is they fired the wrong guys. They fired the wrong guy. It's not the coaching, it's the players. So it should be on Neely and Sweeney, and they should be the ones to go, or they should be next. Do you feel you are next?
Yeah, I mean, if we're not doing our job right, we're not hanging around.
Do you feel you're doing your job right?
Well, I feel like we need to improve the club. The backup goalie's been a serious problem. It's been a problem for a year and a half, maybe longer. So that hasn't been addressed properly. Our lineup. We need another left shot D that can really log some minutes, maybe chip in offensively.
But I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about the results on the ice. Do you feel that? I don't know, that you've done a good job, that you've done a job that the owner is going to stand by, or do you feel that if you don't make it again this year, you're next?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, I haven't had that conversation. If we don't make it in, am I gone? I haven't had that conversation. I would never have that conversation.
Well, and the second question sort of ties in with this, and that is, what is the plan around here? Because it is a little confusing, where it's youth, but you still sign Backus. It's youth, but you still sign Bolesky. It's youth and drafting, but you still give up draft picks for Lee Stepniak and John Michael Lyles.
Last year, I mean, come on.
Which is it?
Last year, we were in the playoffs. We felt we needed to add to give us the better shot to continue to stay in the playoffs. It didn't happen. We tanked down the stretch. Should have been in the playoffs. I'll say it today. I'll say it tomorrow. I said it yesterday. We are trying to add some youth with the guys. David Backus is a guy we feel that could help our top six today and moving forward, bring some leadership that he brought to St. Louis. But we felt he would help us today, tomorrow, next year, the year after, while some of these younger players are still getting integrated.
Do you feel he has? You worried by what you've seen so far from him?
He has not played up to the expectations. He'll tell you he hasn't played up to the expectations. He's frustrated with his game. He knows he can bring more. He knows that he's expected to do more. David Krejci, same way. David Krejci is nowhere near playing the way that he's capable of playing, in my opinion.
So, with regard to those guys in particular, Cam, when you guys made the change from Peter to Don, there were clear problems with contracts, the player development system, et cetera, et cetera. You look now and you say, Krug, Bolesky, Backus, maybe Krejci. It feels like a bunch of guys who aren't living up to their contracts. Do you feel at all like that is?
I wouldn't agree with Krug on that.
Okay, I was going to say, but do you feel
maybe
at all?
At the start of the year, but not right now. I think Krug's been one of our better defensemen.
Do you feel at all handcuffed again? Like, are you heading in that direction where you're handcuffed by contracts?
I don't think so. No, I mean we've really. I mean, we've got to deal with David Pastrnak. We just signed Brad Marchand. Knowing that we had Brad Marchand coming up, we knew we couldn't have them all. So, we focused on Brad. We did it. I thought Don did a great job with that contract, and Brad is living up to the abilities that we think he can continue to play at. I feel like if we get some of these younger players now, I can't sit here and say these younger players are going to come and they're going to make an immediate impact. I mean, that's impossible for me to say, nor would I ever say that and have those expectations for those kids. But what we're seeing in the leagues that they're currently playing in, we're seeing positive strides in a direction that we feel that they're coming. Now, having said that, we do recognize that we do have to continue to improve our club, whether it's via trade, free agents, and hopefully, like we saw with Carlo, we didn't expect him to make our club this year. He did. He's had some struggles like most young players, especially defensemen, are going to have. But we honestly feel like, hopefully some younger players can help. And, we have to do a better job of supplementing the core players that we have now.
Well, and so rebuilding from the middle, is that the best approach? Isn't it easier to rebuild and just rebuild? Or is in some way the message put out by the front office, you and Charlie, that we expect playoffs and that's still what we expect, does that in any way hurt you? Because it's easier to rebuild when you really go down.
It really is, but that would mean, are we going to move Marchand, Bergeron, Rask,
maybe
Krejci?
Maybe.
So when Don put his plan in place and we looked at it and we dissected it and we say, okay, you know what, this is a plan we're going to go with. You're going to execute this plan. We weren't at the time talking about trading these guys, and nor are we now. We feel they've got some good years left in them, and we need to make sure that we're supplementing. And we didn't think it was going to be this year that we're going to be a team that's saying, okay, now we're going to compete for the championship. I mean, getting in gives you a chance. So, yes, we want to get in. And I think it would be silly for us to say we're not a playoff team. With the bulk of the players that we have, do we need to get better? 100%.
Cam, so just back, doubling back to the same thing with Claude Julien. What was the biggest problem on this team, the roster or the coach?
Well, I think it's that remains to be seen as far as the coach goes, but the roster needs help, no question.
So, with regard to the coach, Cassidy was added to the staff before the season. Was that in anticipation of a potential move during the year?
No.
It was not.
No, Don.
Why him? Why him though? Why him as a successor? Like, was there anyone else on your staff that you considered, or was he the obvious choice for you guys?
Well, for Don, it was. He had a relationship with him and worked a lot with him when Don was heavily involved with Providence. So for Don, it was the right guy for him. We have Joe Sacco on the bench, who was also an NHL coach at some point in his career. But for Don, I think the communication that he's had with Bruce over the years, working with Providence, gave him more of a comfort level.
So, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we touched on this yesterday because a lot of people don't know Cassidy's past. He did have one stint with Washington, I think it was 13 years ago, that was well publicized, that it ended very badly. Relationships with play, all kinds of stuff. Any of that concern you?
Well, I think he's grown a lot in the last dozen years or so, and again, we'll have to see. This gives Don an opportunity to evaluate. Is he going to be a candidate for any longer than this season? If Don felt he was a candidate going into the off season with other candidates, this gives him an opportunity to really see, is this a guy that has the ability to lead an NHL bench.
Okay, you answered the question about which direction, rebuilding from the middle, et cetera. You don't want to trade your veterans yet. Trade deadline is in 3 weeks, and if you fall out of it, and it's clear you're out of it this year, would you be more open to trading those veteran pieces for futures than you have been in the past?
Are you saying, and it's clear we're out of it by the deadline?
Correct.
I mean, we're certainly going to look at what's the best way for us to improve our club, 100%. So, is it going to be making harder decisions? Yes. Is it going to be saying, right now there's certain assets that we don't really want to give up that we can improve our club today on, but they're not long term, and they're assets that we feel like there's just no way we can give up right now. And
in terms of the coach going forward, Sweeney, he has the interim label. He's the interim coach, right?
Correct.
So will he be a candidate going forward, and you just need to see it? I mean, he's proven it like a young player would.
It's an audition.
I believe so. Yeah, that's how Don talked about it. Was this gives Don, this gives Bruce, this gives everybody an opportunity to see what he can do as an NHL coach today as opposed to 12 years ago. I mean, he had success in Providence with the team down there. He's done a good job developing players because there's a lot more younger players in the AHL than there is in the NHL. So we're going to see what he brings. But right now, what I've liked is the pace of our practice the last couple of days has been a much higher pace. Structurally, Claude has done an unbelievable job with the structure of the team, how we play defensively. So I don't think there's much tweaks to that, but maybe inside the offensive blue line, going to play a little differently than we have in the past.
Have you? I mean, you got a handful of guys like many teams do that have non-movement clauses. Would those guys be? If you're out of it, would those guys be candidates for trade?
Well, I can't. Right now, I'm not going to talk about that. I mean, there's no movement clauses for a reason. They negotiated them, got them.
I have one final question for you, but before I ask it, is there anything on your list of notes there you want to get to? Anything that's...
No, you guys hit everything,
yeah,
which I expected.
Yeah. You have a final one?
Well, I was just going to say, you had indicated Claude had not lost the room. Had he lost any guys? You understand the difference? In other words...
Yeah, I do understand the difference and possibly, yeah.
I mean, because candidly...
When you say possibly, come on. So does that mean yes?
I don't know, because the players aren't really, they're not really running the management and saying, good or bad things.
They're not?
No.
On some teams that happens, doesn't it?
Not that I know of. Not teams that I've been on.
Do you want?
Well, I was just going to say, because there are, Tuukka's play in particular, Cam, has gotten a lot worse as the year has gone on. And he started out like gangbusters, and there was a game a couple of weeks ago, I might have been longer than that now, where at the end of the shootout in particular, I think of the last goal, we talked about it, he came out, kind of dove, which is something he never does, attempted a poke check. And so, I don't know, was there an issue there? Was there a disconnect that exacerbated that?
That particular play?
Yeah. No, that player and Julien.
Oh, no. Between Tuukka and Julien, no, not at all. I mean, Tuukka's play, there's no question, it has dropped off from the start of the year. Is it overplaying? Is it the schedule? We've had 50 games in 102 days. That play a factor. Obviously, a backup, not having a backup that anybody felt comfortable saying, okay, we're going to get a win tonight or a chance of win tonight. That's been a problem. The backup's been a problem.
Okay, Cam, my final question is, how come you don't do this anymore?
It's painful. You guys are painful. I mean,
is it us? Do you think any of these questions have been unfair?
No, they're not unfair, but it's painful. So I mean, you guys are probably well loved and liked.
Definitely.
I don't know about that.
by your family, but I mean.
Well, Cam, this is the way I look at it.
Yeah, listen.
I started talking this a couple weeks ago.
Last year, at the last interview we did last year, when I'm throwing out F-bombs, I feel like, okay, Cam, time to step back and just not deal anymore. So, right or wrong, I just didn't want to get aggravated every week.
I think it's a horrible look for your organization that no one sits down on a weekly basis. Every other team in town does it. Even the teams that despite the Patriots, they get paid for it, but I mean, they still do it. Bill Belichick sits down every week and answers questions. He doesn't answer them, but he faces the questions. John Farrell does it. The Red Sox front office does it. Brad Stevens does it. Danny Ainge does it. Everyone does it except for this team. Not the coach, not the GM, and not you anymore. And that's just, to me, that is, I think, just such an awful look.
The coach does not talk to the...
Okay, so he does the scrum. But he doesn't do a weekly radio or TV interview where it's a one-on-one fashion. Does he? Do I miss it? The pregame show doesn't count. All due respect to our people. The team because the team broadcast doesn't count. The team broadcast is the team broadcast. And that is not a shot at anyone other than how it works on the team broadcast. They're part of the team. They're not going to do what someone like we would do. And so, but every other executive or coach or GM in this town subjects himself to it. Why do you guys not?
You made a point. Like, who's getting paid?
Oh, maybe we got to pay these guys?
No, but maybe that's why they're doing it.
I think for appearances, even if you're not getting paid. Why doesn't Don do it? Peter didn't do it. Don doesn't do it. So the coach doesn't do it. So you have to do it. You hate it. Like, what are you guys doing? I mean, everyone else in every other market, every other team does this. And I think it's a bad look.
Every other market and every other team.
Well, I
can quote you on that?
No. I would say that I would doubt that there's another team in any pro sport in North America that doesn't have one member of the organization doing a weekly thing. Maybe that's true. Maybe in a place that doesn't care. I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for the Phoenix Coyotes. Maybe they don't want their GM on.
Atlanta.
But, right, I mean, name another. So I just think, good God, especially with the organization, that there's perception problems. I'm sorry, reality problems, as there are with ownership being in Buffalo or West Palm or as it is. And you just sort of, I think fans look at it and go, well, who's accountable? So anyway, I know that's not a question. That's just a statement. But I just, doesn't someone have to do it?
I can appreciate your frustration. I don't know if someone has to do it. You want us to do it? There's a different thing than someone have to do it. I mean, I think, there's enough opportunity for Don to talk to the media. If I get media requests, does someone have to do a weekly show? I don't know. I mean, would you guys like it? Yes, you would like it.
No, I think it's to the fans. It's showing accountability and being just there to face the questions. That's all.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So, and if you did it, we said the same thing to John Kraft last week, which is it wouldn't be as painful if it wasn't every 6 months and we just store up all the negative questions. It would be a little more balanced, But
it would be balanced pain.
Yeah.
Well, since he mentioned the fans, did you hear from fans about either the timing of the announcement?
Yeah, a lot of fans weren't happy, and I could understand that, but I don't know if it took away from their ability to enjoy watching the parade or going to the parade. Again,
you guys keep reversing that. No one cares. No one's saying that you took attention away from the parade. That's not the issue. It's that you use the parade as a cover.
No, it's not. It's not a cover. I just told you. We knew we were going to get hammered for it, but we thought it was the right decision for the organization based on the team not being available Monday, practicing Tuesday, Wednesday, and preparing for our game today. So it has nothing to do. Do you honestly believe we would thought, we're going to slide through
Well,
this?
it's an interesting point. Nothing gets buried anymore. That is true.
But
then I don't get why Sunday. Like, I don't know why the game was Saturday and then it's Tuesday morning. So you're saying Don wanted to be in front of he wanted to talk to the players first? Were they not around Sunday?
Sunday was a optional skate, and Claude wasn't at the skate. So not all the players were there now.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. I mean, I'm part of me is sort of wants to know if the team doesn't make the playoffs, what is it that you need to see to make you feel better here down the stretch? Because I think most people look at it and say, with the games in hand and everything else, that in all probability it's not going to happen.
We put ourselves in a very difficult position when we didn't pick up the points we felt we should have. We put ourselves in a very difficult position when our home record is what it is. We put ourselves in a difficult position because our backup hasn't, come through like we'd like a backup to come through for us. Tuukka's playing too much, so we put ourselves in all those positions. I think if we see what some of our players, are they going to play any better? Are we going to get more from some of the guys that we feel we should be getting more from? And then we'll decide these guys we can't move forward with, or this is some of the guys we can move forward with. So we have to evaluate that as we move forward. Are some of the guys going to improve? And if they're not, we have to look at possibly doing some different things.
Are you talking about veterans now, young guys, or both?
I think it's both. I mean, I brought up a couple of guys. I felt like they'll tell you too they haven't played the way they're capable of playing.
Cam, thanks for coming down.
All right.
Don't be a stranger.
Nope.